What are the top 5 questions that buyers must ask? That's our top 5 for today. With me, the lovely Rebecca Want from Marbella Interiors. Designer-inspired furniture schemes without the designer prices.
That's us.
Getting better at this, aren't I?
I know.
You're happy, I think, to sponsor this.
Very happy.
This
We have
top
fun.
5 series. We do have a lot of fun. I do most of the talking, but you know that's just me. So the top 5 questions that buyers must
in
ask.
reverse
You're
order.
going to do it in reverse order. What's number 5?
Timeline realism, which is a big thing. It's
You
something
know
that
about this.
I'm
a
huge
lot
on this.
because you're the furniture expert. So do people just think that they've got like
Well, people will often
6
say,
months when they've got 6 days?
yeah, and or we're gonna complete in August. Well, A, nothing completes in August. B, I've just visited. You haven't got any floors. And it's easy to get carried away with the excitement.
Yeah.
And things take time.
And also the other way, isn't it? You've got to, if you can't complete on a property purchase because your money's tied up for 6 months or something, tell the agent, because there's nothing worse than putting a deal in place with a completion date of 3 months and you ain't going to have your money.
And you don't want to lose a sale because you'd lose your deposit, wouldn't you? If
Exactly.
You defaulted on
So
that.
I think you've just got to be really candid and open and honest with your agent and your lawyer and just say, look, to do this, it's going to be this timescale, and allow yourself a bit of wiggle room as well, because nothing ever happens on the day you
And
expect.
things to take into account as well is, it sounds silly, but Easter.
Yeah.
Nothing happens for a week and a half. And it's something to really bear in mind. I do it when I order furniture. I say to people, give me 8 weeks to order things from the factory that is going to get here in time. Yes, generally I have it in 6 weeks, but I have to think, well, is there a bank holiday? Is there a cluster of bank holidays? Is there Easter week? Is all those little things there. Give yourself time. Be honest about
I've noticed
things.
this with furniture. People leave it right to the last minute, don't they? They might start the process when they've reserved something maybe off plan, but then they leave it right to the end, and then they expect everything done, and it's kind of like, it doesn't work like that.
And it's not here. There are a couple of big stores, but it's not like in the UK where you can just go shop and take everything home. Things that, and to get the best prices, you order directly from manufacturers, and it gives you more choice. But you do need to give a bit of a timeline.
What's number 4, Rebecca?
I don't know. What's number 4?
I don't know. You tell me.
Community rules.
Yeah.
I suppose, does this like the renting thing come in there?
Well, we're going to cover the rental in a minute, but the community rules are important just so you know what to expect. Like I'm buying this place in London at the moment, and one of the things in the lease is, you're not allowed to have a dog or a cat or a parrot.
A parrot? Is that very specific?
Well,
They must have had a very noisy parrot in the past.
I know.
Or something.
It's kind of like, well, I wasn't planning on any of that anyway.
What
but
about a budgie? Or just not
maybe
any birds?
maybe you get away with a budget, but like things like hanging your washing, and stuff like that.
They're quite, and community rules are quite strict.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect people to find anything untoward, but I always think when you're buying a property, get your lawyer just to check out the last minutes of the minutes of the last meeting, just so you can see what the issues are on a community.
Well, there's no conflict as well, maybe with somebody that's not paying or something.
Well, look, there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be a debtor or a few. There's always going to be someone grumbling about something. There's going to be someone who hates the president of the community, and there's always going to be a bit of politics. It's kind of just cut through that, because that happens on every development. And just look that there's nothing in there that worries you. So if you're planning on putting a pink awning on your terrace, are they allowed? Probably not. But check, maybe get the lawyer to ask the community.
Because they can be very. I worked on developments where it's a specific shade of grey.
Yeah, and people who want to put glass curtains on their terrace, normally you need express permission to alter the fabric of the external fabric of the building. So things that you assume you can do, don't ever assume. Things like reforms. Yeah. Very often you can't do them in July and August, and you can become very unpopular very quickly if you try to. Yeah. So you just got to be just normal and polite and well-mannered about it, and just check it out. Yeah. Okay. Number 3.
Rental restrictions. Yeah, I jumped the gun a bit there, didn't I?
Which you touched on. So the rental restrictions now is a hot potato, because communities of owners now have the right to effectively enforce or not enforce a ban on holiday rentals. They need a 60% majority of owners to allow new license applications for holiday rentals.
But if you've got a license,
you've got a license, you're fine.
And when you buy a property that's got a license, that's fine. Still your license?
Yeah, okay. Which is great. Which is why there may end up being a slightly 2-tier system where properties with a license will be slightly more worth a bit more than those without. But yeah, if you are looking to apply for a tourist license, you need the permission of the community. It needs to be 60% vote.
Okay.
So some communities have already banned holiday rentals. So again, check the minutes of the community meetings, check with the administrator. This is something your lawyer can do, or the agent may already know, or should
Yeah, I
already
do have
know.
a client that I furnished a while ago who had bought to rent
Yeah.
and the community vote, and they've had to sell
Yeah.
and buy somewhere else
Because they
because the
didn't
whole
get their
idea was
license and
to
yeah.
to rent to pay the mortgage.
Yeah, so you've just got to be really careful. That's probably the one thing to be careful of more than any at the moment, but it hasn't made the top 2. What's number 2?
Resale potential.
Yeah.
I really do believe in that. You know, people sometimes buy places just because they're cheap. It's like, well, you might want to sell it again yourself. Why is it, why is it cheap? Why is it not? Why has it been on the market for such a long time?
Yeah. I always, for the last 24 years of doing this job, I always have this conversation with a buyer client. I always say, okay, it's lovely, we love it, blah, 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 but let's look at worst case scenario. Can you sell it?
Yeah.
And can you rent it? And if yes to both, how much money are you going to get back for it? Because you've got to think of that. We don't know what's around the corner in this world.
Yeah.
If we get sick or we lose our jobs or whatever. So you've got to have a get out. You've got to be able to sell that asset relatively quickly for a decent price, and that will dictate to you whether you're overpaying or not in the first
So it's
place.
very relevant as well in my area, especially if people are doing refurbs, is don't make things too personal. We all have very personal tastes, but maybe you've bought a 3-bedroom place and actually there's just the 2 of you and you want a massive cinema room or something. Will you resell that, or will you end up having to put 3 walls back up in order to sell your house? Just little things like that.
I've seen people build villas in beautiful villa enclaves, not build a pool. And you're like, okay, you don't want a pool
But
because you don't like
somebody else
swimming,
will.
but somebody else is going to want a pool.
Yeah.
So, you've got to think of, not only your own enjoyment, but also, am I adding value to the property or am I just doing it for myself? And sometimes it's fine to just do it for yourself. But if you've also got a mind on maybe selling it in the future, you've got to think commercially and think, who am I doing this for? And is it going to appeal to somebody else? I've seen people go crazy on reforms and spend sometimes more than the flat is worth. And you think, why? What are you doing?
Because spending 40,000 on a kitchen doesn't add 40,000 to the value.
No. And particularly if it's done on a property that really doesn't need a 40 grand
Or
kitchen.
the kitchen's bright red or something like that.
Don't mention the red kitchens. Yes.
Total cost to complete.
So is that on number
the top one? The top
Oh,
one.
total cost to complete. Yeah, people.
Because there are lots of hidden costs.
There are, and people are afraid of the answer, I think. So they just don't ask the question. We've all done it. So you've got your headline price, say €500,000, 500,000 euros, but then you've also got to you've got to take into account your purchase cost. Your purchase costs on a resale property are normally around 10%. So you've got 7% transfer tax, you've got your legal fees, your notary fees, land registry fees. And they all, if you allow about 10%, you're probably going to end up with a little bit of change out of that. And then if you're buying on a new development, the costs are a little bit higher because you don't pay transfer tax, you pay EVA, which is up to like 10%. Yeah, like VAT. You've got your legal fees, land registry fees, notary fees, but you've also got stamp duty at 1.2%. So you've got probably 13 to 14%.
And then you've got to buy furniture.
And then you've got your furniture, which is designer inspired and great value. So yeah, you've got to think of that. You've got to think of the furniture or any reforms that need to be done. So before you know it, you're into maybe 20% of the value of the property, and if you haven't
that's a
budgeted
huge
for
chunk.
that, yeah, if you haven't budgeted for it, then you need to lower your sights.
Yeah, and it is a shame to go through such a process and then either have to drop out or buy really cheap rubbish furniture, or or have to cut costs in other areas
But
because
it's really
you run
weird
out of money.
because one of the first things we send through to our clients is a buying guide, and it goes through all of this. And we often have that conversation with a client on the phone, certainly when we meet them. And then very often when it comes to the point of sale, they'll say, oh, I didn't know about the costs.
I think it's excitement though, isn't it?
It's got to be, hasn't it? But it's such a crucial part. You think,
Yeah.
oh, we did tell you about 15 times.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're the top 5 questions buyers must ask. I'm sure there's plenty more, but they're the top 5, I reckon.
I think that's a pretty good list.
Good stuff. On to the next one.